Welcome, everybody. My name is Benjamin Poole, head trader here at verifiedinvesting.com. And I just want to say shout out to everybody who stopped out of a trade yesterday. Congratulations. That is part of trading. Google did end up getting to my levels, did end up closing 15 minutes on a closing basis below it. That was your stop out. Congratulations. Sometimes support and resistance don't always align up to what the traders or the institutions are really doing. That's part of the game. There are some other levels that did hit and worked out quite nicely. We're not going to go into those. If you want to see those trades that I gave yesterday, go ahead and look at yesterday's videos. Today, we're going to jump into the charts because the price action dictates that we should get a solid bounce today off of some of these beaten up names in the pre-market. Let's turn on ORCL. So ORCL is trading at $170.10 in the pre-market. Now that we've already filled this gap, this is still a lot of support. If we do drop a little bit more, though, you have this nice gap right here at $161.24. And I know I did mention that this gap in the charts is still pretty solid. For me, I'm going to wait for $161.39. ORCL can really move, and that's the level I'd be interested in getting in. A little bit more aggressive traders, you could look for this previous gap in the charts sitting at $163.04. Depending on how price action gets down there, that may be a level that I'd be interested in. Now let's go ahead and bust out my watch list. Let's go to all the names that are beaten up. Look at AMC. It's down significantly. I'm not interested in trading AMC. However, aggressive traders, now that it's down 24%, I would actually wait for a $2 peer. So you get this low pivot right here, prior gap in the charts, and a 23% sell-off. Again, this is too small of a company for me. WOLF is another chart. If you're interested in trading WOLF, $43.14 is your long level on the trade or the price action of WOLF. STM. Okay. Couple different things that I'm looking on STM. We've already gotten below this previous gap this gap in the charts sitting at $73.24. Here's a great opportunity. $75 or $70.75 gap in the charts with this 9% move to the downside. That is a decent sell-off. And so we do have this upslioping trend line. I'm actually going to get rid of that. But here's your support level on STM with additional support right here at the prior gap at $69.12. So if you're looking to go long on STM, because it's so elevated on the charts, this is a little bit aggressive. So I'd be waiting for a $69 pierce right below this previous gap in the charts. Again, that's $69. And you also have this previous gap in the charts sitting right here, just a little bit lower. So that's a decent sell-off on STM if we continue this move to the downside. However, look at SanDisk. SanDisk, nice upslioping trend line right here. That's not what I'm eyeing. Here's a gap right here, and this is with the logarithmic charts turned on. Gap in the charts sitting right here at $1,958. Here's your level. SanDisk with this pullback. Here's your buy level for the day trade on SanDisk. If it does close below that on a 15-minute closing basis, I would actually look to stop out of the trade. Knowing that I've got additional support down here, again, because it's so elevated, this is not something that I would end up going long. If it does close below that, then you're looking at $1,881.51. Previous gap right here, as well as basically just below this opening candle of a green bar. So that's where I would look to start dollar cost averaging, because I could head all the way down here, dollar cost average every 20 to 25 bucks, all the way down to $1831.50. 9% move on SanDisk. I was mentioning downsloping trend line on the RSI, upsloping trend line on SanDisk. This is signaling that the top is starting to form. Doesn't guarantee it, but this is starting to get interesting. MRVL is down. It's actually trading right here on MRVL at $278.72. So if you're looking to go long Marvell, that is your trade. Let's take logarithmic charts off. Still, that's the gap in the charts. What I would be looking for is a pierce right here. I actually like this level. $266 is the level that I'd be interested in going long on MRVL with this upsloping trend line. Now, the logarithmic charts actually make this upsloping trend line look a lot better. But even without the logarithmic charts on, still that nice upsloping trend line. I'm just going to get rid of this wording. It shows you that price action consolidated right on top of it and then right below it before this move up. So once it gets back into $266.88, previous gap in the charts, as well as this hit of this upsloping trend line, is going to be your support level. You do have a little bit more of a conservative trade right here. $252.51, 59 cents is that long level if you're a little bit more conservative. This is the area that I would be looking to pick up MRVL though. Again, look at the relative strength index. Nice peak, but it's starting to decrease on the RSI as price action continues to rise. I love to see kind of charts like this. ASML, nice upsloping trend line. We're actually below this upsloping trend line. Look at this. Look at the relative strength. It is staying pretty weak. Even though price action is considerably higher, the relative strength index is not pushing. So this is a warning signal. Now, we haven't really closed below ASML. I did anticipate it going up a little bit higher to 21.28. However, now that we're below this gap in the charts right here, this is the level that I'd be interested in going long on ASML for a day trade today. And the logarithmic charts are not turned on this chart. So 1732 is your long level on ASML today. ALAB, again, another stock that's getting a nice drawdown. I'm going to remove all of this stuff on the charts. And I'm just kind of raw. I didn't go over any of these charts prior to this video recording. However, gap in the chart sitting right here. If you're interested in ALAB, this is going to be a solid support level with this nice drawdown. From the highs, that would be a 14 or almost 15% pull down. $375 Pierce is where I'd be interested in going long on ALAB. Negative RSI divergence as well. NBIS, it's getting a nice fall today, down 7%. Whew, this one's a little bit tricky. I guess the only level that I'd be interested in playing NBIS is $247.45. Still a little bit negative on the day. NBIS, if it does drop down here, I would definitely play it. $232.36. Here's my aggressive level right here at $247.45. AMAT is also falling today. Nice topping tail retrace. Closed above it yesterday. And now look at this fall, 7.85%. Now we're actually below this gap in the charts. So if you're looking to go long on AMAT and all these levels, just like yesterday, if price action does close below these on a 15-minute closing basis, consider stopping out of the trade unless you're comfortable dollar cost averaging. And the way I do dollar cost averaging is depending on the price action or the movement, something that's down or something like AMAT can really end up falling quite nicely. And so what you look to do is dollar cost average every 1.5 to 2% lower, keeping the average price close. And that's how I like to do it. Sometimes I go as close as 1%, but I need an extended move to go about 1%. So ALAB, it would be about 1.5% every time it goes down. And then once I get back to break even, then I would look to remove some of that off of the table, slightly in the money or right about break even. So that way, if it does continue to fall, I can add back to my position and really continually bring that average price down. So that's how I like to do it. However you like to do it, that's completely up to you. LRCX, this is not something I'd be interested in trading. However, look at Micron. My shortable level yesterday was, as you know, $1,228.08. This would have been another hit of this upsloping trend line. Solid level. However, that didn't happen. SanDisk had this nice push to the upside, never got up to my level for a shortable swing level. However, getting a nice pullback, 9% drawdown on MU. So here's this gap in the charts right here, sitting at 1,043.19. This is your long level for a day trade today, knowing that if it does close below that, you do have additional support at this previous gap in the charts, just a little bit lower, 1,021. And then you have this gap in the charts sitting at $981.41. This is your conservative level on a pullback on Micron. Forum, not interested in. BE, still elevated. I'm not interested in trading BE. WDC had this great pullback. So yesterday's video, go check it out. I gave you the level on a retrace right here at $790.74 in the pre-market. That's where it was hitting. And so now you had this huge sell-off, not only yesterday, but this was a continuation move. That was a 14% drawdown had you entered a swing trade on WDC at the previous or the retrace to the scene of the crime on a retrace of this topping tail. Now we're down a little bit lower, below $680.72. Aggressive traders, here's your long level. Technical gap in the charts, $653.53. Now that's it. That should be a pretty solid level on WDC. ARM, another stock. What I'm looking at is a long level on ARM at $342.23 if we can get a continued move to the downside. COHR, I traded this yesterday as well. Great continued move to the downside. A lot of different trend lines in my charts. Let's turn on the logarithmic chart. So here's this upswing trend line. COHR was getting weaker and weaker, continually hammered on this upswing trend line. This is a sign of weakness, and that's what happened. We got this nice fall. Now, a long level today, I would be eyeing this level right here at $353.43, and that's the level that I would be interested in going long on COHR. CRDO, another great opportunity for a potential long. This is an aggressive long level at $272.26. What I would be waiting for is a nice pullback just below this $248 level. This is a gap in the charts just a little bit higher. However, I'm not interested in playing the gap in the charts at $248. I want it to pierce the gap because then I could stop out right here at $243.32. Here's another opportunity, another gap in the charts for you a little bit more conservative traders, $238.97. Okay, so as you can see on my radar, a lot of semiconductors are getting hit. Let's take a look at Intel. Intel, I was eyeing $142.28 for a potential pullback. Now we're getting a drawdown. Here's your long level for today. It's $121.05. Just like yesterday, though, stopping out of trades is part of the game. And as long as you can maintain capital and get into a trade again, then that's how you continue to move forward. AMD is having a nice pullback as well. $511.57 is your aggressive level. For me, AMD can really move. Once you have some selling pressure in AMD, this can continue to fall. Aggressive traders, though, you're looking at this gap right here at $488.45. All right, now let's see what's moving to the upside. As you can see, SOXX, UVXY, LOVE, the VIXI, IBM is pushing higher today. It's actually filling a gap right now in the pre-market, $262.56. If it does get up a little bit higher, your gap in the charts that I'd be interested in playing is right here about $270. So I'd actually wait for about a $270 pierce, and then that's where I'd enter the trade if we can get another move to the upside. Now, this would be another stop out. If it does close above that on a 15-minute closing basis, look to exit the trade because unlike the other ones, this is actually pretty beaten up on the charts. And now if we get a 4 and a 5% bounce to the upside, $270 level isn't going to hold, or if it doesn't hold, it's going to continue to move to the upside, especially since there are other stocks that are continuing to get crushed. CAR, not interested. ACN, somebody was asking me, what's the level on ACN? $121.58 was that long level, put in a nice bottoming tail. So because it's put in a bottoming tail yesterday, $121.58 is your long level on ACN. And that would be for a day trade and a potential swing trade. Look at all of this price consolidation in this area. Did come all the way down to as low as this high pivot point right here at about $120.79. So if you're a little bit more conservative, that would be your entry price, but ton of support on ACN. Nothing else is really getting these bids to the upside. Microsoft, great long level, $366.82. It didn't hit there until the post market, but a ton of support on MFST. Now, if we do start closing below 366.82 on a 15-minute closing or on a daily closing basis, you still have this downsloping trend line as support. Once it breaks that level, though, 344.70 is your next downside target. All right, a lot of different opportunities. Let's see if some of them hit and hold. Let's hope they do. What I would recommend is if you're looking at some of these memory plays, I would only choose one or two. I wouldn't choose the entire sector. What you want to wait for is the S&P 500 to get into some support. Actually, let's jump into the S&P 500 to see where that support is. The SPY. As you can see, we're getting a nice pull down in the SPY. Not a huge move. If we can get price action on the SPY to get to $723.77, then you could play something like Apple and Microsoft and ORCL, whatever is in the SPY. Usually when the SPY gets into a lot of support, it usually drives the markets up. So keep the SPY on your radar on one screen. If it gets into support while other stocks are getting into support, then you can take an advantage of the bounce in the S&P 500 and the stock that you're choosing. I would stick with a mega cap though, if you're looking to play the S&P 500 or some of these memory plays. Anyway, that's what I have for you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time in the charts. You guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.